Welcome back, everyone. It is April 8th, 2026. Let's jump on in here. Okay, so last we left off, we were over in, I believe we were in this section right over here. We were just about to break down from this trend line. So let's just jump in really closely and take a look at what is going on in this section. First and foremost, what's important that I bring up, again, is that we really haven't done anything, okay? So I added a couple lines here. I added this 50% line. This is the 50% line right over here. And you can see I've got connection points. You know, things that are bouncing off, going down, things that are, it's just kind of the reaction line, right? So let me actually make that a different color so that we have that. This is the reaction line right over here. So as you can see, we really haven't gone anywhere. What we did was we actually broke through this trend line, which I was looking for. I was looking for this trend line, and it, you know, if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I mentioned before that I was actually shorting this area. What I am seeing is that we've got this move right over here, and if this reverses and hits this trend line one more time, then I think we're dropping down over here. And I've taken a lot of profit since then. In fact, I not only took a short in that area, but I also shorted right over here as well. And I also took some profit here. And again, I am now in another short right over here. Now, why is it that I'm shorting so much? Well, again, we haven't really changed direction yet, and we are still in the range, and there are these points of resistance. And because we're in a bear market, resistance actually holds pretty strong. So the other thing that has been really prominent in these charts is just how fast some of these candles are moving. And if we look really close at everything, so let me zoom up a little bit. The last video I mentioned balance. Okay, so I'm going to turn all of this off for a second, and I want to show you exactly what's happening. Now, mind you, there are people who have gotten into the chart that are down below, and let's just consider them holders at this point, okay? They are in profit, and they don't really need to do anything. But let's just pretend for a minute that somebody just threw a lot of money in right over here. They just started. Their Bitcoin run right over here. Well, there's no reason why they can't just kind of play this section and take profit and, you know, take profit, put more in, take profit, put more in, and just kind of like play this section fully. These guys here I'm not too worried about, right? Because they're in for the long haul. But you have to understand that not everyone who's buying that actually, you know, there are some people who are buying that were from up above, okay? And they've taken the opportunity to really kind of like, you know, work this area. So if they're throwing a lot of money into this area, then they can take profit pretty fast, okay? And that's what I want you to kind of hold on to as I'm showing the balance of the chart here. So if you notice, like here, if someone got in, they made some profit. But notice what happens to the chart. It ends up coming right back down to where it kind of started here, right? The same goes for this as well. So let's just take a look. So over here, this takes off. But look what happens. It comes back down. So where did we go? We didn't really go anywhere. It's just the same old move. And yes, there's a lot of profit that is taken in this area because they're big moves. So let's move to the next set here again. So here is someone making a lot of money. And then again, it balances itself off in a way. Now, notice there's a gap here. Okay, it didn't quite touch. But also notice there's a little bit of a nub right over here. So really it's not truly balanced. This side is balanced with this one and this one right over here. And as you can see, as we went up on this side came all the way back down right over here. So if I connect that line right here, this is balanced right over here. See, these are balanced right there. And again, even this little nub that went up came back down over here. So that's why it's important to take profit when you're trading these charts, because it's not a move forever. Okay, same thing goes over here. So now we've got this really incredible move. First of all, this was a weekend. This was the weekend. There was no volume at all. And then all of a sudden we get this pop up, and then we get this incredible candle. So without anything more to add to it, I mean, what could possibly happen? Okay. Now, there's a couple of other things that I want you to keep in mind while looking at this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention to this section right here. This is the only move that I'm paying attention to right now, this one. And this was a fast move. It was a lot. It was news driven first and foremost, right? But if this move went up like this, where is the balance? Like, where will we find the balance? Where will it come down to? And also, again, we are unbalanced because of this right over here. Now, I know we don't really have to go back down to that. It's true, we don't have to go down now, but eventually we will. Okay, it doesn't matter how much time it takes, we're going to get back there. And I'm going to show you that in some of the things that I've shown in previous videos and how it actually played out, right? Because sometimes it just seems really unbelievable. But here we've got this chart, and now this, because of this move right over here, we are what? First of all, we are at the top of the range here, right? This is the range, and you can see that from the range, this is resistance, resistance, resistance. So look where we are right over here. This is resistance. Now, it could be possible that we break out of here. And if we break out of here, then truthfully, it will be a change of character altogether. We did have a fake out one time already, which is okay. That is expected because in a range, you usually have manipulation and it usually plays in twofold. And that's important to keep in mind. There's usually two signs of manipulation before we resolve the range. It is more often than not, doesn't have to happen all the time. But here we are at the top. So with the speed of this move and also the fact that it was news driven, to me, it says, okay, let's try a short one more time. So I've done it. I've shorted up in this area again. I have strictly held on to the idea of shorting because we are still in a bear market and we have not come out of this range yet. And most importantly, I see this chart as being really unbalanced, and this is kind of like an area that I feel like we're going to tap somewhere along the way. So that's what we're looking at right now. Now, I'm going to go down into the lower time frames because I want to show you the same idea of being balanced in the lower time frames, right? And in the lower time frames, what you end up seeing is a lot of BART patterns. Look at this. This is a BART pattern, right? It's just, you know, there's these peaks and valleys. Look at them. And it's always resolving back down to itself. So, like, where does it end up going? Like, where is, like, how does it actually end up moving? Well, honestly, it's opportunity. It's a moment of opportunity for you to make gain. Your opportunity is not holding here and holding and holding and holding because all of this stretch of time that you've been holding, you really gained nothing. In fact, you might have even been stopped out here if you were, you know, taking a long or anything like that. So where is the profit if you were going to long in this section? Well, if this is your entry, your first entry, here's your profit taking. Here's your second entry, here's your profit taking. Here's your third entry, here's your profit taking. Okay, and again, once we come back down to here, you can do the same exact thing. So that's how to play these charts on the lower time frames. You can't expect that just because we spike up, that it's impossible for it to come back down. Because I can go line after line after line as to showing you how the chart reverses itself all the time. We are in a bear market. We are not in a bull market. We are struggling at resistance points. So as you look at this, you can see, and I'll map this out. Here we go. Let's say I longed right over here. Look at this, right? We come over here and boom, we're right back over here. All right. This is tilt there, right? So here, I longed over here. Look at this. Boom. And this is only momentary. I mean, the chart doesn't have to stay here, but, you know, you get the point after a while. Okay. Now we end up coming up here and notice that we didn't come back down. Okay. That means that it's a little bit unbalanced, but as you look, it balances itself off, right? Comes back up, balances itself off, balance, balance, balance. Now, what happens to this guy? Well, truth be told, most likely it'll get filled somewhere along the line. So let's just move over to the right a little bit and see exactly if it's filled in. You know, it's not quite there, but it's getting there, you know? So it's just something to observe. Not quite the best way for me to show you that, but it's just something to observe, okay? So you want to make sure that regardless of what you do, you take profit or you close your trade out. Can't sit there and say we're going in a direction because I'm absolutely right and it's going to continue going in that direction. You just miss the opportunity if you don't learn how to take profit, okay? The other thing that I want to point out is this. There are these moves here that you can measure. Okay, so if you come over here and you measure this move from here to here, look, that's a 10%, that's an 11% move up, right? So this is a really nice move. This is if you were to 10x long here, that's a 110% gain. So why not? Like, you've doubled your money in just that section. But also, like, as you measure these things, you can see this is a 7% move. So that means there was a 7% move down, or let's take this one, for example. That's a 9% move up, and there was a 9% move down. So you have to see what, what you can do to really kind of grab that. Because the thing is like, though it is very nice to grab the tops all the time and ride it all the way down to the bottom and take profit right at the peak, that's not always going to be the case. You might be able to get a 2% move of profit because the move started, and this is actually the section that you took profit in. Okay, so you don't always have to look for the tops and the bottoms. They are the best entry and exits, but you can play the in-between as well. But it just means that you have to close out your trade and take profit and be satisfied, okay? Because if you were to end up getting in the middle somewhere along the way, like if I were to get in over here and this was my section, well, look at how much you would be, like, this is your, you'd be going back and forth until you got to an area where you'd be in profit, you'd be out of profit. I mean, like, it's just being in the center is not the best way to be. So diddling in the middle, not good. Okay, so again, anything that is news related, I have a tendency to picture it as only a temporary thing. So when I see a news play, I always look for this thing where it's going to return. Now, I draw this a lot, and if you take a look at some of my other videos, the reason why I draw it is because the moment that they actually take off in whatever direction, these guys, their intention is to make profit. Their intention is to make profit, whichever way that they're going, and they're only in the chart just for that moment of time. It's not because it's a great asset or anything like that. It's because the opportunity kind of presented itself. And then what happens is the chart ends up normaling out. Like, again, it starts balancing. So that's what I end up looking for, okay? And yeah, so that's kind of where we are with this. I hope that makes sense. Now, we haven't quite moved out of the range yet, and there are some things that are going on in some of the other charts. So yeah, so this is Ethereum here, and what you can see is that this is a set of order blocks right over here. This is an order block. That's why I got this white line over here. And notice that we are kind of rejecting at this white line right over here. So this whole section here is, to me, the big resistance area. And I've shorted in this red line before, and I've shorted over here. And again, I believe I shorted right over here. So yeah, I'm in a short right now because of the news that's been driven. But if I'm wrong, then I will close my short and we'll move on. What I am looking for is I'm looking for it to, somewhat kind of like work its way back down here somewhere and, business as usual, right? So one of the other things that I wanted to do was I wanted to take a look at some of the other charts that I've shown you guys before, and I want to show you how they've kind of resolved. So here is oil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip to show you one of my previous videos about this. In fact, when we've got this move right over here, you could see that I drew out a plan for this. 23% of whatever they just put in, they just lost 1/4 of their capital. Now, because we've got a gap here, is it possible that we go back up? Yeah, absolutely. But this should be pointing to resistance for you. Okay? So again, if we go look at a bigger time frame here, that would be your target. If we came down here and we bumped back up, this would probably be your target because there are people that are trapped right there. So look how this worked out. We ended up dropping lower, just like I was looking for, dropping lower. And I said it could come back up here to the top, and this would be resistance. Now, regardless of what, this was a news-driven play. This was yesterday, right over here. Yesterday, it was we were about to destroy Iran. They ended up, delaying it for 2 weeks. Over here, this was another news-driven play. But I want you to really get this idea. When this move happened over here, regardless of what was going on in the news, I still was able to tell you that it's going to come back over here and use this as resistance. Why? How is that possible? Well, the reason why is because it's already written into the charts. This is not like rocket science. Like it's not a coincidence. This chart moved to where it needed to go to reject off to where it needed to reject from. Regardless of how long it took to get there, it eventually did exactly that. Okay? Now, that's important for you to grab that. These support and resistance areas are there for a reason. Okay? And they're played exactly like that. So Oil was one of them. The other one that I showed you in particular was AMC. Now, AMC is something that I tried to put on everybody's radar. I wanted to put that there, and I'm going to play a clip again from what I had last time. But you know, rusty here. But you can see there's a lot of liquidity that's built up along this line. Liquidity, 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 liquidity. So when do you get in? Like, would this be a good spot, or would this be a good spot right when it gets over here and wipes out all of these zones, right? And then all of a sudden it retraces back down to over here. Okay, so now coming back over here, let's take a look really closely as to what's going on, right? And, you know, I said in the video, why would this go up? And I said opportunity. Now, what I did was, in the other video, I had these two arrows over here. These two arrows were my entries. And here was a really big entry that I have. So at this point, I am truly at the bottom of this chart, but it just started to move. And it'll bounce around for sure. But I do have targets in this area. And again, what I showed in the chart was this pattern that was over here. And this was really, really similar to, let me go to the 5 days so that you can see it. This chart looks gross. But I will say this. This chart looks very, very similar to GameStop when Roaring Kitty was doing his thing. He was onto something, you know? And so if you could find this pattern where, you know, there's like this move going down, there's a lot of liquidity that's built over here, and honestly, yeah, this could start to turn into a really big short squeeze. So could it possibly come over here? That's what I'm looking for. So I've already got my entry in there. I hope that you guys are paying attention to what I'm showing you, because these charts are starting to look very, very enticing. It's just a matter of time. So anyway, hope you're paying attention, and I hope you're staying safe. Keep trading and be good. Till next time.